Along the western edge of Hartford, the capital city of Connecticut, there is a long avenue of grand homes built over a century ago. These well-maintained mansions are beautiful examples of the eclectic architectural tastes of their time. Hi, this is History with me, Dan. I love talking about historic buildings, and in this video, I want to tell you about some historic houses that line Prospect Avenue in Hartford and West Hartford, Connecticut. Prospect Avenue is particularly fascinating because the houses there feature a variety of architectural styles, often with several different styles being mixed together in one house. Hartford was once one of the wealthiest cities in the country and had many streets of grand houses built by leading citizens, wealthy businessmen, and prominent politicians. But as I've talked about in other videos, too many of these were lost over time. As the city grew in the 1800s, wealthy people gradually moved further and further westward until they reached the city line along Prospect Avenue by the end of the 19th century. Prospect is a long avenue along a hill with great views to the east towards the city skyline. I'm not going to talk about the entire length of Prospect Avenue in this video, which includes some really big mansions, including Connecticut's governor's mansion. Instead, I want to focus on a shorter and very walkable stretch of Prospect, which extends north from the intersection with Cone Street up towards Elizabeth Park. This is a stretch where some of the avenue's earliest and most fascinating houses were built. The city line between Hartford and West Hartford goes through the middle of Prospect Avenue. So houses on the east side of the street are in Hartford, while those on the west side of the street are in West Hartford, which separated from Hartford to become its own town in 1854. On the west side of Prospect Avenue at number 695, just a bit north of Cone Street, is one of the avenue's most distinctive mansions. It was built in 1900 for Charles E. Shepard, general agent for the Aetna Life Insurance Company. The architectural style of this house is considered to be craftsman or bungalow style. The building's heavily patterned upper floors, featuring wide, overlapping double gables, strongly evoke a Swiss chalet. The house was designed by Edward T. Hapgood, who was one of Hartford's prominent architects of that period. He designed many interesting houses, but also a lot of public buildings, like the former high school that is now Simsbury, Connecticut's Town Hall, and Manchester, Connecticut's Hall of Records. He also designed some insurance buildings, like the Scottish Union and National Insurance Company building of 1913, which is on Elm Street in Hartford, and the now lost Rosia Insurance Company building on Broad Street, which was erected in 1914. In an interesting twist, the head of the Rosia Insurance Company, Carl F. Sturhan, actually owned the Shepard House on Prospect Avenue for a time in the 19-teens. The Shepard House has gone through a lot of changes over the years. In 1924, it was acquired by the Oxford School, which is now part of Kingswood, Oxford. These days, it's part of a school again, being connected to West Hartford's Bristow Middle School, which is located just to the west on Highland Street. The lots on the Hartford side of Prospect Avenue are narrower than those on the west side, so the houses tend to be clustered closer together. So across the street from the extensive grounds of the Shepard House, on the east side of Prospect, there's a row of Colonial Revival style houses, which display typical features such as entrance porticos with slender columns, tripartite Palladian windows, and even a gambrel roof, which can be found on the highly ornamented 1901 home once occupied by Aetna Insurance Company's special accountant Henry R. Hovey. Another house along this row is a brick structure built in 1917. It was designed by the prominent Hartford firm of Smith and Bessette. The most eclectic house in the vicinity was designed by architect Isaac A. Allen Jr. of Hartford. It has a bungalow or craftsman-style wide gabled entrance which mirrors that of the Shepard House, which was built around the same time. While this house also has features of the Colonial Revival, the overall form of the house is Queen Anne, featuring a sharply pitched roof and shingle siding on the second floor. Back on the Hartford side, there's a house that was built in about 1921 that's more of a straightforward Colonial Revival house. It was built for Morris Hartman, head of the Hartman Tobacco Company in Hartford. So far, we've encountered homes that were occupied by insurance executives and now someone with a tobacco company, both industries that were strongly associated with Hartford. North of these primarily Colonial Revival style houses, we start to encounter a lot more mixing of architectural styles, particularly Colonial Revival, mixed with Queen Anne and the shingle style. The 1907 house at 720 Prospect Avenue, designed by Charles O. Whitmore, is shingle style, but just next to it is the striking house at 726 Prospect, which has a prominent Gothic-type corner tower with a crenellated turret roof. The siding is shingle, the big pyramidal roof is Queen Anne, the tripartite window is Colonial Revival, and the distinctively framed front gable is Jacobethan Revival style. This truly eclectic house, one of the standouts architecturally along Prospect Avenue, was built for Henry Dwight Bradburn around 1901, the year he retired as manager of the Nonotuck Paper Company in Holyoke, Massachusetts. The Isaac A. Allen Jr. designed house next door is also a mix of styles, again Queen Anne, shingle, and Colonial Revival. It was built in 1906 for prominent surgeon Dr. J. W. Felty, who came to Hartford in 1897 after practicing for 13 years in Abilene, Kansas. Across the street is another doctor's home, the home of Dr. Michael Gill. His son, Brendan Gill, grew up in the house and went to the nearby Kingswood School. Brendan Gill later became known as a writer and contributor to New Yorker magazine. This Queen Anne-style house has a big shingle-style corner tower and a Colonial Revival entryway porch and Colonial Revival windows. Right next door is a house that's thoroughly Colonial Revival in style. Built around 1895, it was the home of Gilbert F. Heublein and his wife Louise. He led the famous Heublein or Heublein Company, which manufactured and distributed alcohol and food products and famously brought A1 steak sauce to the United States. This house has elegant colonial features and a striking many-paned glass-enclosed porch with slender columns. As I mentioned, this house was built in the mid-1890s. About 2 decades later, Gilbert and his wife moved into their dramatic new summer residence, the landmark Heublein Tower, which is located west of Hartford, atop Talcott Mountain. You can check out my video all about Heublein Tower, which I'll link at the end of this video. Also, if you are enjoying the video so far, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel. Next to the Heublein House is another Queen Anne Colonial Revival mix at the corner of Prospect and Fern Street. Its corner tower has a distinctive domed roof. Across the street is another Queen Anne and Colonial Revival style house. This substantial residence was built in 1905 and designed by Charles O. Whitmore to be the home of Jacob Fox, who was a member of the family that operated Hartford's famous G. Fox and Company department store. Moving north on Fern Street, there's another house that's associated with a prominent Hartford department store. Isidore Wise was an amazing Hartford entrepreneur and civic leader. He opened Wise Smith and Company department store on Main Street in 1897. 10 years later, Isidore and his wife, Selma Stern Wise, moved into the Isaac A. Allen Jr. designed craftsman-style house at 810 Prospect Avenue. Like the Shepard house that I showed at the top of this video, the Wise house gives a strong impression of a Swiss chalet. For almost a half century, Wise expanded his Hartford department store, and he acquired adjacent properties until he became the largest landowner in downtown Hartford. Unfortunately, his store, Wise Smith, is not maybe as well remembered as G. Fox or Sage Allen, other prominent department stores in Hartford that survived into the 1990s. That's because Wise Smith closed in the mid-50s, shortly before his death. Just south of Wise's house is a great 1911 brick Colonial Revival style home designed by Smith and Burdett. And next to that is a 1912 Tudor and Craftsman house designed by A. Raymond Ellis. This was once the home of the great John Elway. Of course, I mean John L. Way, a president of Travelers Insurance Company. Another Travelers Insurance executive was George W. Ellis, whose 1902 Tudor Revival-style home is a dramatic example of that style's distinctive half-timbering. Yet another president of Travelers lived right next door in a house that combines a craftsman-style shape with Colonial Revival details. Built in 1904, it was the former home of Sylvester C. Dunham, and was designed by Edward T. Hapgood, architect of the Shepard House. The last 6 houses I've talked about are on the east or Hartford side of the avenue. I want to finish our tour of this section of Prospect by talking about the block on the other side of the street, where the 3 oldest houses in the vicinity are located. At the northwest corner of Prospect Avenue and Fern Street, there's a big lawn with a number of trees adjacent to some 1920s Tudor Revival-style apartment buildings. Back in 1881, this corner was the site of an amazing Victorian mansion, an imposingly grand edifice with exuberant stick-style ornamentation. I'm pretty sure this house was designed by Palliser and Company, a Bridgeport and New York City-based architectural firm that produced a lot of amazing houses, such as the Frank Underwood House in Vernon, Connecticut, and the Benedict Miller House in Waterbury, Connecticut. The Palliser brothers also published many architectural pattern books. The large house they designed at the corner of Prospect and Fern was built for Young Wing and his wife, Mary Kellogg. Young came to the United States as a student from China and graduated from Yale in 1854. In the 1870s, he organized the Chinese Educational Mission, which brought over 100 Chinese students to study in New England. The mission's headquarters building on Collins Street in Hartford was another great Gilded Age-era structure, but it is now also lost. The Chinese government's concerns about the Americanization of the students they sent and a breach by the United States of the 1868 Burlingame Treaty with China led to the end of the mission in 1881. This was just around the time that Young was building his house on Prospect Avenue. Around that same time, the Educational Mission erected 2 other houses located just north of where Young's house once stood. Also designed by Palliser and Company, these 2 houses, dating to around 1880, both survive today. These are brick houses with typical Queen Anne style features, like steeply pitched roofs and long porches. They also have highly detailed brickwork reminiscent of the Mark Twain House in Hartford. Since the Educational Mission ended around the time these houses were built, they ended up being sold to 2 brothers. One was sold to Henry Wood Erving, who rose to become vice president of the Connecticut River Banking Company. The other was sold to William Augustus Erving, who was secretary and later president of the Hartford County Mutual Fire Insurance Company. Henry Wood Erving was an antiquarian and one of the great early collectors of American antiques. He coined the term Hadley chest for a type of wooden chest with an intricately carved front that was made in the Connecticut River Valley area in the late 17th and early 18th centuries. His brother William Augustus Erving was devoted to his Morning Constitutional, rarely missing the 3-mile walk between his home on Prospect Avenue and his office downtown. That reminds me of another insurance executive in the early 20th century, the poet Wallace Stevens, who walked to work from his home on Westerly Terrace to his office at the Hartford Accident and Indemnity Company. The last house that I want to tell you about in this video is located just north of the two Erving houses. It's also the oldest house featured in this video. It started life as a circa 1845 Greek Revival style farmhouse, but a Queen Anne style front was added in 1885 by Burdett Loomis, an inventor and manufacturer of gas plant machinery. In the late 1860s and early 1870s, Loomis had been instrumental in developing the west side of Prospect Avenue, and in 1873 he opened Charter Oak Park, a harness racing track that was located further to the south in West Hartford and existed for decades. In the wake of the financial panic of 1873, Loomis had to sell the mansion that he owned at the time on Prospect Street, which is now lost but stood not far from the later Shepard house that I showed at the top of this video. In 1878, Loomis bought the much smaller farmhouse, but, as I mentioned, within a few years he was able to enlarge it quite a bit. So this was just one section of the many great houses that you can find on Prospect Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the subscribe button. You can also hit the join button to become a channel member. And please check out my Substack called Remembering Old Hartford. You can also learn more about the houses on Prospect Avenue by checking out my website, historicbuildingct.com. Thanks for watching.